You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
All right, welcome everybody to the Barbell Logic podcast. I am your host, Niki Sims, joined by Andrew Jackson.
Hello.
And hello. We are going to talk about competing today, or even how Andrew just called it, an important day in your gym.
In particular, by yourself,
Yes.
or in a non-meet kind of setting, as most of our clients are training on their own or for these online comps, trying to get themselves in that similar or as close as possible mental state as being on a platform surrounded by lots of strangers and trying to do your best.
Yep. In a singlet. So we have trying to not pretend that you look like an upside down muffin top. So we are talking about this because we have an online meet coming up. Well, but USSF is doing an online powerlifting meet, which I'm excited about because there's a bench press and I'm on team bench press.
First time running this format. Very exciting.
Yeah. So that's happening the beginning of March, which means we have a lot of clients who are getting ready for it now in the sense of pivoting their training a little bit to get ready for a peak day or a peak week, which we're going to talk about. But Andrew, you and I have been involved in USSF for a long time. You for sure longer than I am. And you were on kind of you're like the meet DJ. You would set everything up and judge and coordinate.
Technically meet director, although I often felt like I was the DJ, holding the mic and kind of amping up the crowd. But yeah, the first meet I ran was in 2015, the first US strengthlifting meet. I had been a meet director for weightlifting meets prior to that, but first did one as part of a national event. We did across the country, multiple different locations, all on the same day at physical locations, gyms and just like a normal meet.
Yeah. Online meets were just not a thing until maybe a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. And we were doing about 2 a year, usually one in the fall and one in the spring until last March. And we had one planned. There was one coming up in March of 2020. I remember being in St. Louis for our seminar and posting about having to cancel the meet because the lockdowns were just happening at that time.
Because COVID signed up for the meet and was really ready to.
Right. Yeah. So all the USSF meets got canceled for last year. And then we did sort of a Barbell Logic lockdown smackdown as just sort of like a reaction to there not being any meets. So let's try to figure out how to make the best of it. And it was actually about 2 months ago, a month or two ago, actually, Jordan called me because, I've been part of the steering committee for it. And he's like debating about whether to shut the whole thing down.
Oh, man. Wow. I didn't know that.
Gyms just aren't really running events.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of get this stuff organized. And we started talking through, and kind of his idea of where we could go was, what if we just started moving everything online? So this meet is really the first step towards this direction that he's taking USSF to be almost entirely online. There's still going to be plans for a national meet in person.
Oh, fun.
So these will be sort of like qualifying events.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's pretty cool because there's opportunity for this really interesting blend of garage gym warriors being on their own, but also you could still get a small group together at your local gym or at your garage gym.
Yeah.
Get some people together, which we can talk about later about like how we might want to optimize that day. But that mix of having both distributed worldwide kind of garage gym warriors doing their, competing still internationally against each other, and then being able to get together as a community, hopefully at least once a year for an in-person meet, I think could be really cool.
I think it's pretty cool. Like, I've done a whole lot of meets. Like, I wonder if I've competed in as many meets as you've organized. And I know logistically, it's always a big thing. Like, gym's got to shut down. Everyone's got to get there. And like, literally every time I watch someone organize a meet, They just look like they got hit by a truck. They're like, I'm never doing this again. But they always do it again. You guys are psychos.
I think I've actually talked to you about this before, where it's like the day of the meet, I'm sitting there completely exhausted, watching the 1,000th squat of the day and the loaders scrambling and sweating. Like I always feel guilty for the loaders.
Oh, the loaders. God bless you all. Oh my gosh. I love you.
And I'm always sitting there like, what am I doing? You know, because that's usually like a 2-day thing. If you include setup, tear down, all the stuff, like you want to make it look cool.
And you just make so much money off of these, right?
You make zero money. In fact, I have never made $1 off of these meets. Never once. I've always, like, any money that does come in, I give to the gym.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because I know they're having to shut their gym down for an
They've
entire
got to
day.
deal with all the bathroom situation that happens at a powerlifting meet. Like, woo.
Yeah.
How many nervous poos?
Yeah. Like 12 hours straight. There are 5 people standing outside the one bathroom.
And it's like, it's so funny. In the rest of my life, there's like, I swear there's just always a line for the ladies' bathroom. But at powerlifting meets, it's always the dudes that are in line.
We finally got smart enough to get porta potties
the
last few events we did, and that made a huge difference. But yeah, even the lifters, I think sometimes are like, what am I doing here? Like, but then you get to the end of the day, you see a few PRs, you see, and what keeps pulling me back is that there's something about seeing people, and I don't care how much weight's on the bar.
It doesn't matter.
Seeing people trying to do something that they're not sure they can do and have never done before. And even if they fail, I just love that moment. And I love creating that experience when somebody is fighting for their life to try to get that, that lift, and the whole crowd is in that moment.
Yes. I feel like it's one time where you really see someone being pretty vulnerable, because it's like you get to see what truly motivates them. Like, are they motivated by the crowd? Are they motivated by this PR?
Right.
Are they motivated by not wanting to fail? Are they motivated by their coach? Like, I feel like it's such a vulnerable moment, and they really put it all out there on the platform.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, it doesn't matter what's on the bar, because you can see that they care so much.
Yep.
And then you start to care, and it's just like,
it just kind of draws you in.
By the deadlift time, it's just like, God, this is a blast.
Yep.
But, you know, now we're not going to be in the room with all that happening with online meets. So it's like, how are we going to recreate that same kind of energy?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see. I still, you still see it in the videos, because we require that to be submitted, and we share that. Jordan does his best to kind of help build the community there. I think we're going to try to experiment with some things on Discord where we might have people that are lifting at the same time, or, obviously within Block family, we've got Discord where people can, hook up with each other and lift at the same time. And so we'll see, but it probably still not going to be the same as having 100 people yelling at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
There's just something about stepping on the platform.
You won't have the smells. You won't have, I mean, there's definitely, I think Julie and I talked about this on our podcast. There's the smell of a powerlifting meet. That's recognizable. You got knee sleeves, you got gummy candy, you got pre-workout, like you got the sounds.
Yeah. Whiskey usually being spilled somewhere. Yeah. At least if you're at Jordan's gym.
At least you're at Next Level Barbell. Yeah.
Those guys know how to throw down.
Special.
Yeah. So that meet, just real quick, for those that are interested, if you go to strengthlifting.com, you can go find the details for that meet, but it is going to be the first 2 weeks of March for submission. And that'll be something we talk a little bit here about strategy, is that you can submit up to 3 attempts for each lift over the course of 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow. A whole bunch of redoozies. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So
interesting. So that's a whole nother world of strategizing.
Right. Normally, well, how would you normally prep for a meet where you've got one day,
gonna do it all,
8 hours, whatever it ends up being, between weigh-in and the lift? Yeah.
So that would be, you spend like your training cycle, depending on how long you are, you have a period right before the meet day that you peak, which is, usually like 3 weeks or something. The week going into it is usually like a significant taper. You have like one super duper easy workout on the first day of the week, maybe another one on the second day of the week. And you have so much free time that you're like, should I get a part-time job? Like, should I pick up another hobby? Like, should I maybe go in and lift some more? Like, it's just, you're lifting so little that you just kind of feel a little bored. But then on that one meet day, either you'll go in and weigh in the day before or you weigh in the morning of, but like you go to a new place, you're around a whole bunch of people, you wear a special outfit. There are judges. The costume, the lifter's costume. It's a very nice way to put it.
Yes.
And you plan to do all of your squats, then you plan to do all of your benches, and you plan to do all of your deadlifts, and you plan to leave it all on the platform that day.
Right.
But now it's like, well, man, if I get to do those 3 times over 2 weeks,
right,
that's definitely different.
And
I don't know how I feel about it.
In the midst of that day, you're not only having to, for a typical powerlifting rotation, you're waiting for your entire flight to lift before you come around, which the calculations that we would do was it's about a minute per lifter. We would try to keep the flights to about 15, although not all meets are this organized. I've heard horror stories and I've been at meets where it was a complete nightmare and you're waiting like hours.
30 minutes. Yeah. Like 30 minutes between attempts and then like hours between lifts.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I remember doing this one meet at south of Seattle outdoors on a beach.
Oh, wow.
And they just totally underprepared for having over 100 lifters.
Oh my God, that's a really big meet.
Going with like, we were benching, the benching still was going at dark. It was at night.
No.
And it started getting dark and we hadn't even gotten through the benches. So people drove up their cars to the platform and turned the lights on. I'm just panicking about like spotters in the dark.
Oh my
benching,
God. And is this like Seattle summer where the days are really long?
Yes.
So it's like 10
this
p.m.
was like 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, no, I hate it.
And we haven't even started deadlifting. I don't think it didn't get done. It was like 2 a.m. or something like that.
That's dreadful.
Insane. Anyways, but for a well-organized meet, flights are going to be ideally about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes between attempts. But even that is pretty abnormal for what you would do at home in the garage.
Yeah. And like, you know what, it's just hitting me right now. Like part of what's nice about that is there's stuff that you can't control. It's just like, okay, I'm going to go when I'm supposed to go. Like I'll have my handler tell me when it's time to go. And it's just like, that's out of my control. I don't have to think about that. I have to be prepared for it, but I'm not going to worry about being in control of it.
Right.
But then when you're only lifting on your own, it's just like, oh no, now I have to decide when I'm going to go. And should I go now? And should I wait? Like, am I ready? What time should I go? And it's like, there are just more opportunities for you to like maybe second guess yourself and things that you have to take responsibility for instead of kind of being guided through.
It's a great point. I was just thinking about this yesterday, actually, because I'm kind of in this transition phase where I'm programming for myself for a little bit here. And it's similar in that you've got this kind of mental and emotional energy that you're having to think about for yourself. And I mean, shameless plug, I think it's the thing about having a coach, it's hard to really put a finger on that value of being able to take that out of the equation.
Yes.
And you being able to just focus 100% of your energy on executing the lift. And I think you're right. When you're in your home alone and you get to manage your clock and it's no longer like, okay, bar's loaded, I got a minute.
Right. It's like, should I have a minute or should I have 5 minutes?
30 seconds?
What if I did something wrong in that last workout? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's definitely a different piece to it. So you're signed up for this meet.
Yes.
How are you and Jordan, your coach, preparing, and is it any different than for the day?
That's a great question, and I'm wishing I had actually asked him before we were recording this.
Fortunately, I have a quote from him.
Oh, okay, good.
Because we did ask him like how he would prep. So
yeah, all right, yeah, we asked all of our coaches on our Slack. So what did Jordan say?
Jordan said, I peak all of the lifts to happen over about 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
I would do the typical order of squat, bench, deadlift. And this allows the most rest between squat and deadlift. And I try to save a few days and an additional attempt in case of judging a poor performance in a given day. So
cool. I like that.
And I've watched a lot of his programming. Again, it's one of the things I love about being in Barbell Logic is we can go creep on other people's programming. And Jordan's one of my one of the people
favorites to watch.
One of my favorites to watch. But what's really interesting, because he's sort of known as being an advanced, high-level competitive athlete and coach, is that if you go look at his programming, it is, and you're experiencing this now, like it's pretty simple.
Oh, yeah.
Hard and effective,
Yep.
right? I mean, to borrow from our own terminology, but like, it's not like you're doing a bunch of crazy accessories.
Nope. I've been doing the
crazy
same
rep
thing
schemes.
since I started working with him. It's been literally the same stuff. It's just getting a little bit heavier. He'll move some things up and down, but yeah, it's just, so that's kind of why I haven't really thought about it yet, is because I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just showing up to lift, and then
Right.
I know I'll have to do it when it's ready. But I actually do like the idea of spacing it out over the week, because I will, since I love to deadlift, and that's the one whenever I go to meet, I'm just like, I care about my squat, but I usually don't want my squat to mess up my deadlift.
Right.
So now that consideration isn't really a factor. It's just like, I get to have a day where I get to have a squat.
That's huge.
And see what happens there. Yeah. And then like,
Right.
you'll be super fresh for bench, and then you'll have a day where it's just like, just deadlift day. So that'll be different.
So you are definitely a fan of one heavy lift for the day.
I've never done that before. I've only done it once where I just peaked a deadlift, but this will be like the first time I will, quote, peak for an online meet, spreading it out throughout the week, which will be, unless I talk to Jordan and we're just like, no, let's do it differently. But we'll see.
I would be interested in, because I mean, I think that makes sense for you, because what I'm hearing is that the psychological ramp for you is going to be the deadlift. Because some people on a meet day, some people, you ramp up for the squat. Maybe you try to, you keep in mind that you've got the deadlift coming, so you don't dump it all out, but then you ramp up again for the bench and get yourself like as close to redlining psychologically as you can. And then you do that again for the deadlift. So what I wonder is, with somebody like yourself, where maybe you're not going to go ham on the squat.
Yeah.
You're going to put in a good number, solid attempt, and then the bench, and then you're going to go to 11 for the deadlift. That seems like it would work really well. I wonder if you spread that out, would that just be like emotionally draining to do that over a week?
I wonder. I feel like it would be for people who have really big squats.
Yeah.
Because like some people are like that, where their squats are just way bigger than their deadlift. So it's just like, man, if you eat that at the beginning of the week, maybe it will wear you out.
Well, like your client who just PR'd today.
Yeah.
This 5RM, like he seems like the kind of guy that his psychological peak is going to be the squat. Is that?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of, and especially when you're at like near a big PR that's important to you, like there's a ton of emotion that's going to go into that lift. And so probably for someone like that, I might actually have them squat at the end of the week.
Interesting. And would you be worried about the deadlift?
I'm second guessing this.
Yeah.
Now I am. Crap.
It gets tricky, right? Because like, even if that's true, the deadlift is typically going to be the one that's more physiologically really draining.
Yeah.
But here's a thought. Here's an idea. Most taper programs have something like a 90%-ish, or like maybe your opener about a week out. So what I think you could do for somebody like that would be to have that last heavy deadlift day of the taper be at the very beginning of the 2 weeks. Post that as your quote unquote opener or whatever, your first attempt, but make it a no hype, like get the number in, like have that lift posted. So like you're good, you've got a total. Then you could hype for the squat as like your primary day, and then do the deadlift at like your formal 1RM deadlift at the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then you would have like, almost a week after your squat to do your deadlift.
Exactly. You could still have a week to finish tapering for the deadlift.
That's a good idea.
That's a thought.
What would you do? You're going to compete, right?
Yeah. Well, shoot. You just put me on the spot.
This is my goal, is to make Andrew sign up for the meet right now.
Okay. Yes. I'll officially, I'm on air.
Andrew's like never competed in a powerlifting meet, right?
That's true.
Tell the truth.
That's true. I've never actually done squat, bench, deadlift before in a competition setting. So
welcome to being a real powerlifter.
Damn it. All right. So great. This will be perfect because I have not been doing like any formal training for powerlifting.
Excuses.
I have 1 month ready, go.
Let's do it.
So I think I would do standard squat, bench, deadlift.
Why?
The deadlift is definitely the most psychologically important for me too, as well. Like squat, I want to be fresh for sure also, because I think that's the one that's the most in my head. And actually Becca had an interesting comment on this aspect of things.
Oh yeah, I liked what she said about that.
So let me pull her quote up. Actually, she said, if I have a lifter who is mental about a certain lift, I love the use of the word mental there, by the way. It always makes me think of British TV shows. Like,
oh, really?
That's mental. Like that's mental,
funny.
you know? I definitely tried to peak them to have a chance to attempt a week apart if possible. So like if there's a lift that you are skittish about, do it early and then you can come back and do it at the end. And that's kind of my thought with the squat as well. Like I would want to do the squat early because that's the one that I feel like I have a tendency to either misgroove or just like something like I'm not as technically confident about the squat. And I'd want to have time to come back.
If you had that first day of squatting, you get it done at the beginning of the 2 weeks and you felt good for that day, you went in for the weight that you wanted to hit and you didn't get it, what'd you do to kind of like mentally repair yourself for going at it again a week later?
For a week later? You know, I try to treat it as if it didn't happen. I try to let it go, you know, take that day and forget about it.
That's good.
And I think that's generally just kind of my approach to failure as much as possible, not to dwell on that lift. The big thing for me personally is usually attacking the bounce. And, you know, this is another, like, to plug Carl Schutz's analysis that he's done on the squat, is that our ability to produce the most force possible is at the bottom of the squat. And what I tend to get tentative, getting into the bottom and getting my head too wrapped around like the number on the bar, and I miss the opportunity to explode out of the bottom and build momentum through the sticking point about 3 inches up.
Oh man, okay.
So that's usually where I will personally fail, and I've done this before. I'll miss that rep, and then if I can come back a week later and just hyper focus on pick that one thing that I know I just need to be aggressive about, that's usually how I'd approach it.
I like that. So you'll put it behind you. And that's what you have to do on meet day too. It's just like, well, if you mess up your squat and that messes with your head, you can't just sit there and be like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't wait to yell at my coach. Like, this is going to be the worst meet ever. You have to like just put that in a little drawer, close it and save it for maybe never. Just time to move on to bench.
Well, and this is a huge advantage to the 2-week format, because I've definitely seen lifters who miss a rep and get stuck in their head.
Yeah, big time.
And the rest of the day, depending on which lift it is, the rest of the day is shot.
Yeah, I've definitely been that person before.
So what have you been able to do? Like, have you figured anything out for managing that?
Yeah, I remember when I first started competing, I would have a bad squat day, which is typical for me. I just learned that I couldn't go for squat PRs on meet day because I wasn't good enough to like get out of my head for them. So part of it was just planning my attempts to be like, I'm going to get these. And I don't think I've ever PR'd a squat at a meet. It's always just been like, cool, that was a good rep. I'm happy with that. That's great. That could definitely change because I think I'm in a better position now to just be like, oh, squat didn't go well. Like, let's just switch gears and get ready for the next one. There have been times though where what really has wigged me out would be having a really difficult deadlift opener or a really difficult deadlift second attempt. Like when I know I'm like, this is it, because I do PR my deadlifts at competitions. That's typically where I PR my deadlift. So, but if like that opener is really heavy, that's when I have a really hard time getting out of my head. Because it's just like, well, if that went that way, like, am I even going to be able to get to the one that I really wanted today? And so that starts to feel really heavy. But like that happened at a USSF meet with what turned out to be just a really tough meet day. Like deadlift opener was brutal. Third attempt was like, I think 20 pounds lighter than what I wanted to pull. And it was like a 9-second grinder. And that was just so hard.
Was that the Nationals in San Francisco?
No, this was one in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really tough one.
Yeah.
And then I did a deadlift only meet and I missed my second attempt. Like the plan on that one was to open really heavy. I opened at 405. And then I was going to go for 430. So then I had 430 on the bar for my second attempt and I missed it. Yeah. And it was, I missed it at my knees. Like I still tried really hard for it, so I was like a little tired. And so that was like, I had to really recalibrate myself for that one because like I wanted it so bad. Because I even had it in my head a little bit. I was like, man, if 430 goes well, I'm going to go for 440.
Yeah. Which is the number right now.
That's the one. That's the one. So yeah, I had to like really just stay positive. Just like, I can get that. I can get that. I had to only think about like what it would feel like to get the bar above my thighs. Because if I could get it there, then I could do it. And you know what really, this is,
you could finish.
Yeah, this is goofy, but some of my in-person clients at the time were psychologists. Yeah, psychologists. And one of them talked about how like, you'll notice if you look to like upward in one direction, you'll feel a certain way, and another way, a different way. And so like, we had talked about that before. And so I just looked upward towards the ceiling, towards the right. And it's like, that was like my positive creative side. This is so woo-woo.
Yeah.
Like, I literally just made sure to not look at the floor, and I only looked upward in that direction.
You're talking to a Pac Northwest
I'm talking
guy
to PNW
here.
over here, yeah.
You're in my wheelhouse. Let's get some granola and go ham. I remember we talked about this before, and I've done this on like walks. I've noticed that I'm just like looking down at the floor or looking down at the trail, and then I just look up, and simply that act in itself will make the day better. Yeah.
It's so different. You start seeing things that maybe instead of like getting stuck on what had happened, you end up looking towards like what could happen. Super woo-woo. But like, I don't know. I was able to do it. I came back for it, and I ended up getting 430.
Wow.
And I was just really pleased.
That's lifetime PR for now.
Still my lifetime PR. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was heavy.
You mentioned an interesting aspect of meet prep that I have definitely adopted, at least particularly for weightlifting, but I think it would be true for powerlifting as well, is that I train for the opener. Obviously, you want to hit the PR, but mentally, everything for me is training for the opener. If I can
that's cool.
increase the opener over time, and for me, an opener is no miss. Like, thou shalt not miss an opener.
And that has to be the case like in weightlifting too, right?
100% with weightlifting.
Yeah.
Especially for the snatch, like missing the snatch opener is just psychological worst case scenario, because now you immediately start worrying whether you can even post a total.
Right. You can bomb out. Yeah.
And it's a finicky lift. So, and anyways, I have definitely conditioned myself, and I think that it would be useful to kind of what you're describing is like, have that opener be a confidence booster that is going to help you build momentum, and then let the outcome for the day be what it'll be. And it's sort of, again, woo-woo. You're focusing on the process, let the outcome be what it's going to be. But I think it creates a little bit of space for you to not get derailed if there's a miss.
That's probably something really important for our clients or whoever's going to be competing in this meet, is just like, don't go from like your last warm up of like a double or something into the weight that you want to hit. Like, let yourself do an opener. Right. So to speak. Yeah. For that day.
Now, the thing with a 2-week event though, is if you are mental, as Rebecca says, about a lift, and you melt down and you're just done like mentally for that day, you could actually give yourself a day or two to like, call your psychiatrist, have a therapy session, go
totally do that.
Like go to a rage room, break some dishes, meditate, and then you could come back and do it again. Like,
yeah. And you know what? Because there's nothing physically that you can do to help yourself at that point.
Right.
The training is done. You are not going to make yourself stronger. It's not like you're going to fix any technique weirdness. Like, it's legit all in your head at that point.
Right.
So that's all you have to fix.
Now, interesting question here. You just described a situation where you missed and came back and lifetime PR'd. So you missed with a grinder at your knees with a PR attempt, and then came back 10, 15 minutes later and hit it. In this 2-week format, would you do that? Would you come back same day and attempt it, or would you bag it and come back the next week and try it again?
I think that would depend on where I missed it. Like, if it was stuck on the floor, definitely not. I'm just going to come back and redo it. But if I moved the thing,
interesting. Yeah,
I might give it another go on that day. And I would definitely come and give it a go again.
Yeah.
Later on.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
But like, I really respond well to the crowd in a deadlift. Like,
yeah,
I want it. Like, please yell at me. I love that energy. Like, I did a deadlift only mock meet for myself that I think we were talking through, where I was just like, okay, my training is going so well.
It was, yeah.
The meet that I was going to do got canceled. So it's just like, all right, let's just do something in my garage. And I don't even think I did squat or bench singles. I just did that deadlift.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was seeming like it was going to go really well, but it was just like one of those days where, you know, you like on a good meet day, you feel like you can put your whole body into your lifts.
Yeah.
And then on other days, and I'm sure you've all felt this before, like it doesn't feel like it's your full body. Like you need, like for a deadlift or a heavy squat, like you need like every single cell on the same page. And I kind of had that feeling that I was just like, we're not all here. We're not all here, but I'm going to trust in my programming. Trust in my program because my training has gone so well. Let's do this. And I think I pulled 405 for my last warm up or something, or 415. And that went okay. And then I went to go for 40 and that thing was stuck on the floor.
Glued. Yeah.
So glued to the floor.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not
and
there.
I think sometimes not there. And then I realized that the York milled plates are a little bit shorter.
It's true.
And I'm like, well, maybe, you know, it's because I was pulling from a deficit.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it can go both ways.
So that kind of opens the door to tactically maybe talking about like the day of or the day before. Like, do you have a pretty particular process for getting into that mental space and then creating that environment?
Yeah.
And having had that experience last year, how would you do that different this year? Is there anything different?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how I want to do it this year, because, you know, when you go to a meet, when you physically go to a meet with a bunch of other people, like it's different enough of an environment that you can make it its own special thing. Like we just talked about a few minutes ago, like you're in a different location, different equipment, different people are judging you, different smells, different sounds. Like it's so different that you can make it that own little thing. But when you just go into your garage, it is exactly the same as when you go in for a training session, unless we can figure out ways to make it different. So what I'm thinking I'll do is like, I'm definitely gonna plan what my days look like on those days where it's like manage my work stress as much as I can, and definitely won't do jujitsu on those days. And like, you know, I might even have like a certain outfit that I wear that's not one that I always wear. I'll have my costume,
Okay.
You know?
Yep.
So things to like make it different than just a normal training day. But I'm not 100% sure if that's the right way to do it. Like maybe I do just want to make it like a normal training day. So honestly, I'm still kind of thinking through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about other environmental things? Like, do you have particular music? You know, I imagine putting on something from the, I don't know, early 2000s, angry, angsty, 20-something dude like screaming about his girlfriend kind of music, just to set the
You mean like any music that Black Iron gyms play everywhere? Just like, can we get some Nickelback? How about some Evanescence?
always on rotation. It's one of the mysteries of the universe, I think, that particular style of music 20 years later is still what you find at almost every gym.
Do you think that's played anywhere else but gyms like that? Like maybe at like a billiards bar?
might be. I don't know.
I don't know. It's all awful.
But I mean, it's everywhere. Like you cross the country. That's the playlist that's on. There's like a station.
There's a station. It's just like powerlifting gym station.
Yeah. We were just in Missouri like 2 weeks ago, and definitely
same songs
was
each
like
time.
Evanescence still cranking.
Linkin Park. Yep. But anyway, we will not be listening to that for sure.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I find it fascinating that's
all wrong.
All right. So is music a thing? Like, do you pick tracks that you know? Like this was something I think somebody mentioned is so here's an interesting one. Reynolds has mentioned in the past, he's got like that one Metallica song he'll always play.
Yeah.
And it's because very specifically, he doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like it's
I like
just a
that.
thing that is in the background, but it doesn't even really, the way he's described it, doesn't hype him up.
Yeah.
It puts him in that zone.
It's like it helps him focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, for sure, like I probably listen to music that I've kind of trained with before on like heavy days. And like, it's like, I'll make my heavy days specific in the sense of even the music that I'll listen to. And like, I definitely do that for deadlifts. I have certain songs that I'm like, okay, this is heavy single deadlift.
It's time. Yeah.
I think I've been listening to the same heavy single deadlift song since I lived in San Francisco. Yeah, so that'll come out. Yeah, you want to like, seems like there are some things that you need to bring you back to your training and not just be like overwhelmed with all the things like, what music should I put on? And should I wait a little longer? And now you have to think about recording yourself. Like that's a whole nother factor to consider.
Yes.
So it's like, what can you put on autopilot? I think will be really helpful.
So that brings up, I think, something that is really useful for any competition. And that is to have your day planned as much as possible and to visualize it. To include making the lift. So I would recommend having the song picked out, having the costume picked out, having the schedule of the day planned, you know, as many details as you can imagine, and then visualize that. Whenever you have that opportunity and, you know, play it out, like, what does the lift feel like? What does it look like? And kind of ingrain that mental
I like that
groove.
And actually, Jillian was talking about on her podcast, she would take like an hour. She's like, I know I'm going to do push-ups for an hour. And she would sit for an hour. And meditate on the entire hour of what that would be like.
That I've never done before. I remember hearing her say that. It was that's some next level intensity right there.
Yeah, sounds like someone who sets world records.
Yes, exactly. But you know, that's the way it is. And your meals too. Like make sure, you know, we talk a fair amount about nutrition and mentioning Jillian. You know, I think a huge mistake I made early on was thinking that I could like power up specially for a meet by eating, you know, extra or different. And
then you're like bloated in weird ways and your stomach's just like, hey.
The only exception might be if you have practiced the Skittles and whiskey pre-workout.
So funny. I don't know if I would want to do that. I would feel so nervous about taking a shot and then going to do a deadlift.
Well, so this is the thing. And this is why I prefaced it with, if you've practiced it.
Yeah, like, good point. If
it's your thing, and I think it is for Jordan and his gym, like if you're used to it and that's your thing, absolutely go for it. But all right. So we talked about music. We talked about your routine. Ideally, if you've got friends in the area or, well, actually this could be a personal preference.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you want a small crowd or not? Or would the alone?
I don't want to get in trouble. Like,
okay. Hypothetically, well, maybe we should just say this. Some people might do better with a crowd.
Yeah.
It might depend on who that crowd is.
Yes. The thing is, like, I just am a selfish, terrible person on meet day. And so if I have to I just sound like such a drama queen when I say this, but if I have to worry about other people, like if I have to share a bar, if I have to share a rack, like I want to sit down and not have to talk to anybody or not have to do anything between my attempts.
Right.
And maybe I'm just making up stories in my head, but I feel like if I did a group event, I would have to be less selfish.
Hey, I think that is totally fair to know that. And I think that's generally true. I mean, this brings up a whole nother can of worms of the warm-up room drama and, you know, that psychological aspect of meets that gets totally eliminated. Yeah. Which I think is, for most people, a good thing. There are definitely some warm-up rooms that I've been in where it's fun and it contributes to the experience. But, you know, you take a group of strangers and put them in a highly emotional situation and then also expect them to share and be not selfish.
Like the thought of having to warm up, and I've had to do it, like to warm up on a rack height that is shorter than me for a squat, like I don't want to do it. Yeah. I'm a terrible person.
Well, you know, it's just those small little details and kind of it saps little energy and little bits of focus. So
such a drama queen. Andrew's enabling my drama queenness.
Well, you know, I've been known to be dramatic about that kind of stuff before, although I've rolled with the punches a little bit better, I think, having done it enough times, but that's a skill to develop for sure.
Yeah. Here's an example of how Andrew is good at rolling with the punches. For our last trip in Missouri, he scheduled his flight out of the wrong freaking airport and didn't even realize it until like the night before.
Yeah.
And was just like super chill about it the entire time, got where he needed to go. Yeah. And I would have just been having like a total panic flip out.
Yeah. I think it's because I've done that so many times, not that particular thing, but like I've had a little detail go wrong at the last minute and panicked about it so many times and it not help at all that sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'm able to just roll with punches. But anyways, so the point, I guess, there being to think about what is the best environment for you. Niki, for you, maybe it doesn't work to get people together. Others, like if you've got a local gym that you guys can get together and create a version of that energy, then
that's probably gonna be,
I would say,
freaking fun.
Go for it.
From what I've heard about stuff like the King of the Hill and everything, that just seems like the best time ever.
Yeah, and to me, that would be an example of where I might ditch the 3 attempts over 2 weeks approach and go for, hey, let's get together.
Absolutely. That's the day.
And do it and like treat it like a meet.
Yeah.
And the performance might actually be better.
For sure.
In that situation.
I guess if you really just decide what you're going to do and then plan for that, that would be better than just like deciding on the week of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whatever you're going to do, I would definitely say have that planned out, visualize it, think about how you're going to manage it. And so that's another reason why I think the 1 day approach could be better, is that now you're only having to manage 1 day. Whereas trying to figure out how you're going to create that space 3 different times or more could be tricky.
Yeah.
And an alternate route you could go is to have the 1 day early in the 2-week cycle. And then if you need another attempt,
you can space them all out. Yeah.
Then you could go back and do it again. And maybe you only do 2 of the lifts and you know, so you can save some energy. There's all kinds of things you could play with.
It'll be fun. I'm excited to see what people end up doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
How about small little detail? Ammonia. Is that critical for attempts by yourself?
Or for sure. Without a doubt.
All 3 lifts?
If it's going to be like a bench PR, yeah. I'll save it for like my last squat, probably. My heaviest squat. I won't do it for openers. For sure not for openers.
Right.
Maybe if it's a heavy second attempt, but maybe not. I would like to save all of that hype juice for the heaviest of them all.
Cool. Awesome. For those that are interested, there's an article on Art of Manliness.
Oh, yeah.
If you Google Art of Manliness smelling salts, there's a good, if you're not familiar with them, it gives a good explanation of what it is, what it does.
That's a great article.
And where to get it, what kinds. There's, you can buy the capsules or the bottle. I prefer, for optimal experience, the bottle. For practical usage, I think the capsules are better.
I don't think I've ever done the bottle. I've only done the capsules.
Because the problem with the bottle is usually more intense, but if you're just like noticed or seen them around at a gym, usually like there's the old disgusting bottle that a zillion people have used and it's weak sauce.
Well, they don't have that around for COVID anymore.
There was at in Springfield, but they're usually like, it just wears out quick because you've got a seal issue that you're worried about. But anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
So lots of interesting things.
Yeah, excited to hear what you all do. And I hope even if you aren't going for PRs, it could just be a fun way to position your training for a little while, something to look forward to. Or
I think that's a really good point.
Different.
I mean, we obviously talked about this within the context of USSF, but this could be for anybody. Like if you just want to have a big day, you could mentally approach it like a meet. And maybe it's just a heavy day for you. Yeah, could be fun. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're finally going to do a meet, Andrew. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So thanks everybody for listening. Excited to see what you all wear and see all the PRs come in. And I'm excited to go shopping for my costume because I hadn't really thought about that. But now I'm definitely going to buy a new lifting outfit. And write that off for sure. Awesome. Alrighty. All right. We'll see you guys next time.